Welcome everyone as you're coming in. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to get started in just a moment. We're just letting all of our friends in from our waiting room, and then we will get going. We're so excited to spend a few moments with you all this morning. Excellent. It looks like most folks are able to join now. So good morning. It's so nice to see everyone. My name is Dr. Christy Jackson. I'm a proud senior learning strategist here at BloomBoard, and I come to my role at BloomBoard as a 20+ year classroom teacher. I was predominantly a K-3 and reading teacher, and had the opportunity to be a site level and a district level leader here in the Phoenix, Arizona area, where we implemented BloomBoard pathways for about 5 years. Now I have the amazing honor to work with stars like these on the calls, where I get to work with districts around the nation and to support the amazing programs that they're putting in place, and to elevate their participants as they move into or deeper into our amazing education profession. So I'm going to take a moment to let these amazing women on the call introduce themselves. Dr. Osher, would you like to start first?
Sure. Thank you, Christy. It's a pleasure to be here. Hi, my name is Dr. Deborah Osher. I am the Director of Instructional Leadership at District 65. I've been in the district now 22 years. Grew up in Evanston, went through the Evanston school system, spent 12 years or so teaching middle school, and then 7 years as a building administrator in 2 buildings here in District 65, and then district office for the past 3 years. So super excited to be here.
Thank you, Dr. Osher. We appreciate you. Elizabeth, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. I am Elizabeth Frostick. I am a TA in District 65 at Shute Middle School. My mom was a teacher in District 65 when I was growing up. She was a reading specialist and kindergarten teacher. And then my brother and I went through District 65. My kids went through District 65. And now here I am in District 65. And I'm very happy to be here.
Oh, Elizabeth, thank you so much. Cynthia, would you introduce yourself as well?
Yes, my name is Cynthia Battle. I've been in the district as a paraprofessional for 24 years. Although technically I'm not an Evanstonian, but I'm an honorary Evanstonian.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Cynthia. We really appreciate you being here as well. So we're so excited to hear all of your stories. So Dr. Osher, we'll actually start with you. If maybe you could give our listeners a little bit of background about District C5 and your experience with the district.
Sure, absolutely. District 65 is comprised of 19 schools in total, 10 of those being a elementary school, which range from kindergarten to 5th grade. 3 are middle school, 6 through 8. And then we have 2 magnet schools. Those magnet schools are K-8. And then we also have an early childhood center, which is actually in the building downstairs. So I have to make sure I have all these kids outside my window playing. I hear them. We also have one school, a park school, which houses students with that are classified as low incidence, and they range from age 3 to 24 years old. And then we also have one therapeutic day school in Evanston. So a wide range of schools with many options for our community. What's unique about Evanston, though, is all of these schools after 8th grade feed into one high school. And that high school is kind of the center of the town. So we operate in the surrounding area, and then everybody feeds into one high school. So it's kind of like the center of everything in our town.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you have a rich history in D65 yourself too, Dr. Osher, right?
Absolutely. Grew up here, do a lot of community service here. My family, actually, my grandmother used to work at ETHS, which is the high school, and retired from there. But my family in general, both my brother and sister do community service. My brother's been coaching basketball here for 29 years now. So yes, very and live in the community. Can't even go to Target without someone saying, "Oh, Dr. Osher." And it's interesting enough, I have a twin and she gets mistaken. She's like, "No, I'm the other Dr. Osher," which she's the doctor. So, but she'll take the credit. But
Absolutely, right? That's a great way to do it. Oh, well, I wanted to highlight that because that's how we always feel so much is D65 and the community is such a community there. But talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges that you may have been facing when it comes to teacher recruitment and retention.
Sure, I will say Evanston doesn't really have a teacher shortage of applicants, right? But what we do have is representation of the diversity that we do have here in Evanston, and also more of those hard to fill positions, right? We have several programs and buildings that we are committed to dual language programs. Our special education, our LBS 1 certifications, and of what I call the unicorn bilingual special ed, right? Those are some real areas of shortage not only in Evanston, but nationally, right? So we really, look to fill those positions. Again, I'll go back to representation. Our teaching staff is 60% white, um, about 13% Black, 11%, I'm going off the top of my head, 11% Hispanic, and maybe 6% Asian, and 3% um, 2 or more languages. And so, although some districts will say, wow, that's a lot of diversity, we are really committed to a equity and inclusion policy. We're very committed to that, whether it's in professional development, but in programs. But I think it's super important for us to even think about, yes, inclusion for students, but how do we then diversify our staff to also meet those same kinds of needs? Because it's important for our students to see themselves not only in roles that are not educators, but as the people that are leading our classrooms. And so I think, in Evanston, if we're not willing to, walk the walk, then we can't really be credible in saying that we're true inclusion and equity based.
Gotcha. We so align with that and appreciate the efforts that you've had. So talk to us a little bit first about how are you addressing some of those challenges? What are some things you all have been putting in place?
Well, it's BloomBoard, right? Here we are. We also had a teacher residency program, and I can talk a little bit more about that on the back end when I discuss a little bit more about BloomBoard in general. But, we did really have we had a teacher residency program for educators to get a master's in teaching. They had a bachelor's degree in another field, and they might be a second career choice person, and just decided to do something differently. And so how do we then attract that kind of talent and then do a residency program partnering with universities and really get them up and running in our schools? Because we know from data, hands-on experience is the best. It's best for students, it's best for adults as well. And having the residents in our program help build their capacity. It's one thing to read a textbook and know textbook theory, but I always said this in middle school, you better have a pocket plan, because, textbook theory is not always going to save you when you're standing in front of students, right? And you don't really know what to do. And so that 1 year intense, and we had 2 different programs here for our teacher residency program. One was a 2-year program, one was a 1-year program, where they would be in the classroom for a full year, working side by side with an educator that had the licensure that they were going towards.
Yeah, middle school will definitely teach you that, if nothing else, right? For sure. Well, talk to us a little bit about how you've sort of expanded that type of residency model, and what that program that you've been implemented with us here at BloomBoard has looked like.
Well, it was that hands-on experience, but that's great that they can get through that experience. But then what happens afterwards, right? What kind of support will they need afterwards? Because it's one thing to get the degree and the licensure, but how do we retain them over time? Because we know, based on all the data that we are reading and research, that people don't stay in the profession. And you spend all of this time and effort and money developing educators, right? And you don't want them to leave, right? Because you've invested in them. And so from my perspective, I always thought about like, what is it that I wanted when I was a new educator? What didn't I have? And in my roles here of being a building administrator, right, I was a true instructional leader, right? I spent half my day in the classrooms. But then moving into the role before this was the talent development coordinator, and really laying out a plan of support, and not only support for the work that we do, but how do we teach that self-care? How do we, work smarter and use people in the building that already have experience? Because sometimes the best educators are right here in our own district, but we don't tap into that. And how do we really partner to make it more of an experience rather than just a one-off, a PD, and put it on the shelf?
Well, speaking of some amazing educators who are right here in your schools, we're going to get to hear from Elizabeth and Cynthia in just a moment. But tell us a little bit why the shift over to considering supporting your paraprofessionals or the education support professionals. What was unique about this group of folks as you began this cohort that made you really excited to begin your program?
Well, it was, and I always say this, it just started off as a thought in a planting seeds, right? Sitting in on a meeting like, what if, right? How do we grow our own? People that are invested in here, and paraprofessionals are are boots on the ground. They actually are help teachers that are coming in to maybe substitute and are guest educators during the day. They run the classroom. And how do we invest and capitalize on that, right? They know our students. They have the best relationships with our students. They've either gone through here or they've been inducted, and we've adopted Miss Cynthia here, right, as an Evanstonian. But how do we really leverage that, right? Because they are, and in most districts across the nation, they tend to be in our lower paid, right? Educators, and I call them educators because they are. And so, how do we utilize their investment, right, to our kids, to our community? Because these educators who have been here as paraprofessionals are committed, right? And so we want to keep that. And so by offering a program where they can still keep their job, right, day to day, and do their work and degree, and not have to worry about things that if you were in a traditional program, right? How do we then invest in that? And it was really, it's life changing, right? Why wouldn't we want to commit? That's the question. Like, why wouldn't we do this, right? And we already know they're going to be here. They've already proven that to us. And so how do we do that and leverage the diversity, right? Because this is going to be life changing for our families and our paraprofessionals. And so we want to invest in them and give back as much as they have given to us over the years.
Oh, what a beautiful way to state it. And that's what I hear and feel every single time we work with your group. So,
Thank you.
well,
Yes.
Dr. Osher, thank you so much for telling us a little bit about how we got here. Now I'm really excited to hear from Cynthia and Elizabeth. So, ladies, if we can let's talk first a little about if each of you could give us a little bit of background on your career path and what led you to enroll in this program to get your education degree. So let's see, I saw Elizabeth come off mute. If you want to go ahead and begin, and then Cynthia will move to you. Perfect.
So as I said, my mom was a teacher. She was a kindergarten teacher. And so I spent my formative years going back between elementary, middle, and high school in her classroom, helping her out. And I swore at that time that I would never become a teacher because of the amount of work that she had to do on the very hot summer days when the rest of us were trying to enjoy our August. I went to University of Iowa. I was a physical therapy major. I came back to Evanston and went to Oakton for a year because I struggled very much in college, was diagnosed with ADHD and excelled. And went to DePaul for a year and then got pregnant with my oldest child. He's 22 now. And so that is sort of where my schooling stopped. And I did a little bit at Oakton and other, community college stuff over the next 12 years. In the meantime, I had 3 kids. I got divorced and I was single momming the heck out of things. And I did go back and get my associates at Robert Morris. And I was a surgical tech student. And I decided right after I finished that I never ever wanted to see another body in a surgical suite. So I procrastinated for the entire summer, and a friend of mine who's still a teacher here said, "Hey, Liz, we need a para at Shoot." My son was about to be a sixth grader here, and I said, "Sign me up. What do I have to do?" I mean, also I got to go to school with my kid in middle school, so that was amazing. And that decision changed my entire life. I got to middle school and realized that I indeed love middle school. I like teaching the kids. I like the age group. Everything about it was not what I envisioned, but I would have been stuck in single mom para world probably until I died, because obviously the awful pay that every para makes is not enough to live on. We've been on Medicaid for the entirety of my kids' lives. We've had food stamps, and this opportunity changed everything. I mean, I will be able to pay my bills and feed my children and have real insurance and things because of this. So without this, I don't know what my future would hold. I'd be back to waitressing or, being a para or whatever. But this opportunity is hands down the most life-changing experience I've been given. So I'm very grateful.
Oh, Elizabeth, we're so grateful for you. And I know we've heard and I've seen your interactions with your students that you're making that kind of life-changing impact with them every day. And so we're so excited you chose to come in and you love middle schoolers. We don't hear that all the time. So it's super exciting to have
Very
people
weird.
who love our kiddos. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your story. Cynthia, if you would answer the same question, tell us a little bit of the background of on your career path and what chose you how'd you choose to engage in this program for your educational path? Oh, and Cynthia, you'll just need to unmute.
Well, I was in the medical field for many years as a respiratory therapist. After it started attacking my health and things of the sort, I was catching every cold, every sickness that came along. So I'm like, something has to change. So my girlfriend introduced me to uh, a, a, a supervisor that used to be here, Margie Lenore. And I applied, got the job. Now, like I said earlier, I've been here 24 years and I love it. But now age is creeping up on me, right? Didn't get the opportunity to get back to school. Like I'm a single mom as well. And when I was introduced, well, the BloomBoard was introduced to me, I'm like, wow, that sounds cool. But my mind didn't think about me. I was thinking about the other pairs. This would be a great opportunity for the other pairs because I know they work hard. And of course, there's going to be some changes and some money. And so that's where I went. But it was like you should apply. So I applied, I interviewed, and I got it. I've been happy ever since, and I just love that the non-traditional way of the program, how it's structured. So I'm
Cynthia, tell
yes.
me a little bit more about what you mean about that, because that was actually going to be one of my next questions is, why this program, right? Dr. Osher even spoke earlier about, some other programs that the district has been working on for a while, but what about this more non-traditional approach appealed to you?
Well, I was able to continue to work, have a paycheck, and the convenience of it. I've been, lucky enough to the teacher I've been working alongside for now going on 17 years. So I call ourselves peas and carrots. So and and it just okay. Now I've always been one of those that set in on the plannings and the cohorts and all that. But to like go through it and see what the teacher does, I think I'm answering some questions that's down the road. But it it was like, okay, I'm here every day. I don't have to like not work to do this and get a degree. I would be the first of my parents' children to obtain a bachelor's.
Oh, that's
That,
exciting.
that's another thing. And
Yeah.
my grandkids, I tell my grandkids, and they were like, "Grandma, you in school?" Then you hear you say, "Grandma."
I'm
I like,
with
"Yes,
them, right? Yes. Oh,
I just love the convenience of it, and I didn't have to lose my income because no way I would have been able to do this.
right. None of us. Absolutely. So having that mentor, being able to stay in your role, continue to work, and the convenience of really being able to do that work in your classroom.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Elizabeth, how about you? What about this more, more flexible or less traditional model worked for you?
I think I hands down think it's the best model. It seems crazy to me to ask young people to go in and read textbooks about theoretical teaching situations when they have not spent a day with kids. You don't know that this career is not for you until you have been here. I have had family members who've gotten their teaching degree, taught 1 or 2 years, and ran for the hills. And I just think that for us, we know that we can handle classroom. Like we can be in a classroom, we know how to talk to the students, we know how to make connections with the students. We need, the information about how to build a lesson plan. And then we get that online at our pace and then can turn to people that we already know, like friends of ours, our co-teachers and other people who have many different ideas about how ELA should look from their perspective. And it just, I think that this is how people should learn to become teachers. I think 1 year under your belt being in a classroom is great when you're like learning to co-teach or whatever, but having a job where you really are down here and where you don't get paid very much, and then you know that you can do it and that you like it because you're not, you know what I mean? It
Absolutely.
seems like such a natural progression of the way we want people to understand their relationships with kids and move on in the future. And it's been incredible. I could never have ever gone back to school full time with my own kids. I couldn't have afforded it. There was no time. The studying, you can study while you're in real time learning things that you discussed the night before in class or that you read an hour earlier in your work. And it's incredible.
Absolutely. I remember in my teaching program, and I had a program that I think I loved. I thought I loved at the time, right? And I remember how powerful it was to get to the end of it and be like, oh, but those classes had been a year or two before, and trying to go back and pull out that information. So I always love when I see things and then I know you all are working on artifacts that very next day. And so such an exciting thing. And those relationships, having those established relationships, we see those when we see you with your students all the time. So let's talk a little bit about that. We've both highlighted some of those things that you really like about the program. Now that you're getting close to graduating, what are some of those things about the program that you really thought were beneficial for you? And what do you like the most about it? Go ahead, Cynthia.
Okay. It gave me more of the insight, a more detail outlook and what teachers really do. Because it's one thing to be looking from the outside, but now when you really like tap into the detail of it, I'm like, oh God, poor teachers.
Are you? I always think that as well. Are you finding more efficient ways and like learning from your mentor? I know Cynthia, you've worked with her for 17 years. So what about those conversations with your mentor now? Are you starting to, not only are you seeing what they're doing, but learning some of those tips and tricks?
Yeah, and also using some of the terminology, that I hear
Absolutely.
teachers, I've heard the teachers use.
Yeah.
And like today, one of the words was executive functioning. And so I'm like, oh, I can now use some of the terminology with her, and she just giggles because we're like, you know what we're talking about.
Right, right.
So,
That's the
oh,
beauty, right? You've been doing this work. So putting the language to go with the degree to do the work is just so powerful.
right.
Absolutely.
But
How about
I
you?
can see how it really, the time it takes. Um, and if you really and truly are about the students learning and you want to meet that individual child's needs. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Same question for you, Elizabeth.
One of the things that I really like about BloomBoard's program in particular, and it's something that we're doing in our district now, is that we're switching to standards-based grading. And I feel like BloomBoard does a really good job of doing that, but without I mean, I don't feel like anybody was ever like, so we're doing standards-based grading, guys. But it's made it, for me, I understand the transition in the district from A's, B's, C's, and F's, D's, whatever, much better, I think, because I'm living it currently. So like, it makes total sense to me why you either get it or you don't get it. And if you do get it, being able to explain it in a way that makes it clear that you get it doesn't mean that you have to get an A or these things. And I see a lot of very upset parents because they don't really get it all these years. The A has been the ultimate goal, not the understanding of the concept. And I feel like because we have spent the last 2 years doing this, either you complete it and it makes sense that you get it, or it doesn't, that I understand what's going on in our district right now in ways that the teachers and the parents across the board don't. So for me, like personally, this is all working out very nicely because I understand it's not confusing to me. So
Right.
I thought that I feel like I feel like you get better understanding of how much someone knows this way than you do with a grade that, is kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, when we started thinking about having the opportunity to learn and grow with our participants, one of the things is, if you think about it, do you ever want a teacher working with your own child who just, passed the class or actually really, truly understood? And I think that's one of the things that are so important to us is to support our participants all the way along with our district partners like Dr. Osher to be able to say, we want to make sure that you grow and you get there to be an amazing educator with your students. And so having the opportunity to continue to grow in that space until you really understand it and working with your university faculty to do that has been so powerful in the growth that we've seen all along your program. So speaking of that, how else has this program prepared you for the realities of actually taking over a classroom yourself? You're getting close to that. So how has it prepared you? What are some of the things you think you're like, yeah, I've got that?
Cynthia, do you want to go?
You just need to unmute, Cynthia.
Oh, I was gonna say,
There you go.
ahead.
So we talked about knowing sort of the reality of preparing for the classrooms and kind of what that looks like, partnering with your cooperative teachers, really knowing sort of some of those lessons and how to apply them. And so really those preparations for kind of taking over your new classroom. So with graduation coming in just a couple of months, how do you feel about the future?
Well, I'm excited. I think BloomBoard has done an excellent job with preparing us. Um, has it always been easy? No. There's been some little bumps in the road, but we learned to overcome and keep moving. So I'm just excited right now. You really don't know. I'm so excited. That every opportunity I get, I like, look here. I graduate in December. So, don't bother me.
Tell you nothing. No. We're so excited for you to graduate in December too. Elizabeth, how about you? How are you feeling about the future?
I'm excited. I'm nervous. I mean, it's scary to think about having to, like, I know that I do great in the classroom. I'm really good with kids. Like, we've got a good repertoire, these sort of things, but like to teach them actual things, then they have to learn it and like take it home. I'm a little nervous, but I think it's going to be great. And I'm really excited to see what happens next. This has been just such an incredible experience between meeting these group of women who we all understand what each other are going through and those supports. I feel like we'll just really have each other's back down the road. And it's like a good little club.
Absolutely. So we've got a group of 10, and that's one of the most amazing things about your cohort is 10 of you started and 10 of you are finishing. And so I know as we think through this program and you all being able to move into your classrooms, it's an amazing idea to know that as you've moved through, Cynthia, you mentioned, it's not easy. The work of a teacher isn't easy. And Elizabeth, I think to hear you say, like, I'm a little nervous, that makes a lot of sense, right? It's a really important role. And if you go through a really amazing preparation program, you can't help but be a little nervous because you know the weight that's in that role. But also to hear you all say how many amazing opportunities you've had to engage and to practice and to build that along the way. So if we can, let's talk a little bit about what that experience has been like. So when you're doing your assignments, Elizabeth, you talked a little bit about, them giving you an assignment that you actually take and carry out and do that in the classroom with your students. And so so when you've been doing that work, what's something you've been able to do? Have you been doing some small groups or whole groups or one-on-ones? Talk to us a little bit about some of the work that you've been able to do in the classroom.
I am a one-on-one, so I have one student that I work with all day long. She's my buddy. And so what I get the most opportunity to do is sort of small groups, because I end up supporting her. But we're always with kind of a small group that needs a little extra support. So if anything from rereading the directions and making sure everyone's staying focused on their task, to reteaching things when they need to be retaught. And then all of our teachers are so welcoming with allowing us to come in and like teach a lesson or teach, something that we have to record ourselves. And the kids are great. Sometimes I always tell them I'm nervous when I'm recording myself on a video. And so they know that we might have to like start over because I'll start to talk too fast or whatever. But overall, it's been so easy to work on something and be engaged in class at the same time. I mean, unless we're like reading a thing. I work in social studies. Our entire unit right now is on social studies, and it's like things that we're doing in class or things that we're trying. It's just working out really well for
So
me.
well aligned. And what an amazing experience for your students to see you as a learner with them, and that you're continuing to grow. That's such an amazing thing that we want our students to feel as they move through that program. So Cynthia, what about you? What kind of experience? Oh, you've been recording yourself and working with your students. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, working with my kids, I'm comfortable with the kids, but as Liz said, like recording yourself. That was one piece is like I get nervous, and then I'm like, I ask my mentor, I'm like, I'm talking too fast, right? I need to slow that down a bit. But I just overall feel like the opportunity in having a mentor that I could work alongside, who doesn't mind critiquing me. And even one
That's how
time,
we grow, right? That's how we grow.
right,
Yeah.
one time I was recording something and she just hollered out, "Slow down." I'm like, okay.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm recording. So,
Yes.
but it's just awesome because it's really hands-on. We used to use this term long time ago, OJT, on the job training. We get we get in the training, you experience the different lessons. I remember one lesson, I think it was a reading lesson. And about a month later, one of the students was still saying what I had instructed on. I'm like, yeah, this is a month later and they remember.
Right.
Yes.
Right. That's the goal. Yay. Yes. They're
You know,
learning it. Right.
but so I said I must have did something right,
Right.
that the
Right.
child still was talking about it. But yeah, the hands and being so closely like in my building, I'm just surrounded around such great educators that I can get the help I need
Yes.
from anybody. So
Oh,
it's
well,
not.
that is such a wonderful spot to move back over to Dr. Osher, because thank you both so much for sharing a little bit about what it's been like to grow and to learn in this program. And speaking of getting the support that you need, Dr. Osher, talk to us a little bit about how has the reaction been to this program among the staff and your community as you've supported your group of 10?
Yeah, it's been great. I will say, again, when they first started and we first selected our 10, right? I call them my top 10, right? And they are tight. They are a tight group. They started together, and then they promised that they were going to finish together. And so I think yes, and they've come a long way. I think for me, the district feels very grateful for these women. Again, it hasn't been easy. We've encountered, it was new to us, right? We've encountered some ups and downs. How are we going to make this work? You know, do they need time release to do their observations or their teaching? And that's where I really came into play, because I felt like I was their biggest advocate. Not only did I have the credibility with the principals, right, but I'm mobile, right? Even though my office is upstairs from where Cynthia teaches, right, and she will come find me and let me know at any point. She'll come up and say, hey, this is a hot topic right now. This is what we need some help on, and I'm on it, right? I said I'll have an answer for you in about less than 24 hours. I'll get back, right? And in really keeping informed. So I think that the principals have been amazing, flexible. What do you need? I even offered, if you don't have coverage and we can't find a sub, I'll come in so they can get time release, right? So really being an advocate for them. They know that these, thank you, that these paraprofessionals are going to be there. They've stood the test of time. They've been here year after year, day after day, through COVID, right? Through everything. And so they know these are the type of educators they want in their building. Even when we started, the support was, you know, most paraprofessionals either didn't have a device or they had a technology device. They had a Chromebook. I'm like, nope, all educators under districts and our district have MacBooks. I need 10 brand new MacBooks. And they got 10 brand new MacBooks, because if we're going to prepare them to be teachers, we have to give them the same types of technology, same professional development opportunities, because they are educators. And so the PD, I set up PD for culturally relevant teaching practice, a series that they went through. So they had opportunities to go to these development sessions because teachers were going on half days. Why shouldn't they also have those same opportunities? So we celebrated them. When there was an issue, like I said, the group would email me and say, this is what we're struggling with. I was monitoring progress from behind the scenes on the platform. And when we would meet, we would meet weekly and then bi-weekly. If someone, I was like, wait a minute, somebody hasn't posted, let me follow up with them this week, right? Let me follow up and see what's going on, because I did not want them to fall, you know, off the track that they were on, whether it was for personal reasons, whether it was for things that were happening at the school. Whatever it was, I was there to support them so that they could be successful in this program.
You know, Dr. Osher, it's something that always resonates. You mentioned, you know, our weekly calls at BloomBoard. We meet with our district partners weekly or bi-weekly to make sure that we're helping to support any needs that may bubble up to you, and having that, always hearing that constant communication, being in touch with your group of 10, I think made such a difference, not only for you to advocate for them, but also to just share the things that were working, things that we could support on our end or monitor with their faculty. And a question actually came up in the chat, a little bit related to that. So we do connect with their university faculty and make sure that they're getting everything they need on both sides. You know, what we would really want them doing for our students in the classroom, we all had that same mentality to support our cohort of 10. And so we had a question in the chat a little bit about, is there a university in particular that your cohort is partnering with through us? And how will they obtain their Pell now that they're getting close to graduating? So Patricia, I don't know if you wanted to start there and I can add any additional detail.
Sure. We had some opportunities to partner with universities. We ended up with Lake Erie College in Ohio, and there were a couple options to obtain a Pell. They could do two different pathways. They could either sit for the Ohio exam and then apply for reciprocity, or they could just sit for their Pell in Illinois. So obviously we did, since they're going to be in Illinois, it was even though they had the option to do both, it would be more cost effective just to get the Pell in Illinois. So the university has done a really great job. We got the tutoring program up and running for them so that they could practice questions for the Pell. It's 240 tutoring, is that the
That's
name?
right.
I always get the
242.
number
Yeah.
wrong. I got
Right.
so many numbers in
Right.
my head, right?
Yeah.
So many numbers, so many acronyms in education.
Right.
And so they really have been practicing and getting ready. Some have taken it already. Some are actually working as a para and a long-term sub in some of our dual language positions right now that are hard to fill with a provision from the
Excellent.
state. And so they will be certified in dual language as well. And so I feel like the partnership has worked really well, right? The university, if there's a question, I will email Christy and her team, and she will get right back at, and she'll be the, go between the university and us, and then I'll get the information right back out to our paraprofessionals, right? And following up, and if it's taking an extra day or so, still communicating that, right? We're working on this. I'm going to get an answer for you shortly. And then it's worked out, right? We've worked through those things. Again, it was new to us as well. But I think I've been on both sides of the fence. I've been both on the educator side, and then I've been on the building administrator side. Well, I've been on all three sides, right? And now the district office. So having someone that knows how to kind of navigate that has been, I think, helpful and really flexible in our thinking. And knowing that that's what education is. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't, but we work through that, right? And we persevere.
Right. Absolutely. And that's our whole goal as we create our partnerships, is to make sure that our university and our district partners have that opportunity we know that it's a journey in education. And as you go through those few years with us, to make sure that we remove any barriers and that we provide exactly what any of your individual students need and their schools need to be successful as they go through this process. And so truly that full wraparound support. So, and you're absolutely right, Dr. Osher, in your case and in our other programs in other states, we partner with universities who either have full reciprocity into the state where our education support professionals and other educators are working through their programs, or are within their own states that they can use either reciprocity or direct to their state to be able to earn their degrees. And this entire cohort is earning their bachelor's in elementary education, but we also offer other pathways that are dependent upon what previous degrees or what license you're seeking for a Pell as an initial licensure. There are other programs and other degrees to support that. But it's been an amazing opportunity to have our practicing faculty and our adjunct faculty or our educators supporting our educators coming into the profession. So great question, Kevin. Thank you for that. And so, well, let's talk a little bit next about how do you see this program supporting your ability to recruit and retain maybe teachers again in the future, Dr. Osher?
Well, I think a couple of things that, came to my mind. One thing that Cynthia was saying, well, both Cynthia and Elizabeth said. Well, Elizabeth said she was nervous, right? I was nervous on my first day of teaching as well. I was like, wait a minute, tell me again, I'm supposed to set up this classroom, how, right? And, and supporting teachers. Now that their program is over, just because it's over, I think the support then has to look a little differently now, right? Now that they were teachers of record, right? So what does that look like? So on the back end here, as the person who is in charge of new educator education and professional development as well, how then do I continue to support them after their experience with BloomBoard, right? Moving in. And I think for me, it's a natural fit, but also figuring out, and knowing what is it on an individual basis. It's almost like a classroom is how I describe it, right? I have 10 students with some needs are similar and some are very different. And how am I going to differentiate and scaffold that, right? To best meet their needs. And then make connections for them, even though they have the 10 of them. They also have connections in their building, right? People that do small group well, people that set up classrooms well, people that do MTSS well, right? And so how do I give them time to go see that and then also partner with those people that are hands-on, because I'm one person. I mean, there's quite a few schools here, so I can't cut myself in 19 pieces, but what I can do is designate the time that they need and then make sure that they are getting the supports that they need to be successful. There was another part to your question. I'm sorry if you.
Yeah, oh no, you definitely addressed that's such a huge next step. So I think I was just also wondering about sort of your next steps and our next steps in the program. I know we've talked a little bit about some other areas of need and some things that you might be looking at to address as you move forward.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So once we started this program, I mean, we had about, I would say, 50 people that applied, but then we had weeded out some who had an associate's, who had some college, who didn't, right? Who would be a good fit, right? We went through an interview process. There was an application, and we really got to know our candidates. And once we had selected our top 10, we got it going. It wasn't until about a year ago when people started really paying attention, like, tell me again what that is. And now I get inundated all the time with emails like, or when I'm walking through a building, they'll say, well, this is what I have. What do you have for me? Right? Is
Right.
this a program that fits my needs? Or I don't have this, but I have this. Or I don't have anything at all. Is something coming up? Right? And so I've gathered all these names in different, areas of, yes, they have this. No, they don't. They want to start this. This is their background. This is how long they've been in the district. Right? So really looking at what are the needs now of our district, right? Again, going back to that LBS one, and maybe it's people that have come through, maybe it's my top 10 who want to get an endorsement and take an extra couple of
Right.
classes, right? EL endorsements, dual language, that
Yeah.
LBS one, all of those things I think are open for consideration because they're already here. And I think we don't have to go searching for people to apply
Right.
if we already have the grow your own mentality here, in being able to develop the people that we already have, we already know that, and more importantly, that know our students. And our students have relationships with, I go back to the relationship piece, and I think, Elizabeth was talking about this, she spends the majority of her time with a one-on-one, but she knows people in the school. She knows educators in the school, right? And she has relationships. And once you have those connections and those relationships, then that's really half the battle because we know students don't learn from people they don't like.
Right. They
So
don't know how much, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? We all
and that
know
they
that
can
in
trust you,
education.
and yeah, and that they can
Absolutely.
trust you, and that you're also, I call it with love and accountability, that you're going to
Right.
also, you can have a bad day, you can have an SEL moment, that's fine, but we're still going to do this work, right? And get to it. But it's all about that relationship. And so these ladies have done a phenomenal job really, getting students to understand that the world is open to them, that they can do whatever they want to do because they're proven themselves to do that. And I think that piece is critical when you are developing that. So again, people are asking what's for me, what's next. So I'm putting together a list and looking at the needs of our district. How many people are going to retire, how many people, right? All of those things come into play when you start to pan out. And then what do our students need, right? What are
Right.
the data telling us about our students? And then
Absolutely.
that.
Definitely. Um, Absolutely. Carrie, I see a question, a hand has been raised. Are you able to come off mute and ask? Let me see if I can offer you that opportunity. Let me see here. I think that I can. Excellent. Yes, there we go.
Hmm.
All right. You should be able to unmute yourself now, Carrie, and ask your question. There you go.
I just had a quick question for Cynthia and Elizabeth in terms of, were you all in from the beginning or did you have concerns? I just know that sometimes we talk to our paras and they're really worried about jumping into something like this. The idea of going back to school seems really heavy. It sounds like this program is pretty different. So what were your thoughts kind of initially, if you don't mind?
I mean, initially I was ecstatic because we didn't have to go to a classroom any number of days a week. The other programs that our district has done were more traditional. And so the teachers actually had to go to school, like physical school in a building and have classes. Everyone was a little nervous, I think, because, you know, the thought of going to college full time while you're working is a lot, but this is like the best possible scenario. I mean, you know, we're reading and then you get to like look up and you're like, oh yeah, that works for this lesson plan that we're doing right now. Oh my God. So, you know, I understand the hesitancy because it sounds like a lot, and it's a lot, but it's not anywhere near as a lot as any other program. I don't think that we would have to take time out of our schedule and drive down to the city to go to a class at least 2 days a week. I can't imagine there's a way to do it without being, you know, in a classroom at least a couple days a week. And I mean, my kids still got dinner every day that we've been in this program. So, you know, and with as much regular effort as it takes, not with like a whole new juggling system. So.
For me, I was all hands, as they say, hands on deck. Cause I've tried going back to school, taking some courses and trying to get from work to the school itself. And actually the school is my job. That's how I looked at it. The convenience of it, the non-traditional ways. And now I say, if I can do it at my age, anybody else should be able to do it. I'll be 61 in December. So I'm not a spring chicken, you know. So, but yeah, this is the best.
Thank you, Cynthia. I will say though, I just want to mention, and her name escapes me, so please forgive me. The lady who started with them on their program to really get them acclimated to online learning and the platform. I want to say how
Cheryl.
amazing that was.
Cheryl.
Thank Cheryl. Cheryl's amazing, and I will say that that was the piece. Even when we had to wean off Cheryl a little bit and kind of go on your own. It was a little like, wait a minute, where's Cheryl? I'm like, but you've got this, you're ready. But I will say, it was set up for success out the gate, right? And it's almost like that whole backwards design. And, you know, I'm a true fan of backwards design. You got to plan with success in mind and where we're going, and setting them up with devices, getting them ready, celebrating them, giving them all the supports that they need, and then that gradual release, right, of it being independent is really, it worked like clockwork, right? Because of the supports that came initially from the beginning.
I will echo that. Cheryl in the beginning helped us all figure out what we were doing when we just had no clue. We didn't know how to turn things in. We didn't understand the questions they were asking us, so we would give them the wrong answer. And she had such a depth of knowledge of the program, and then would phrase things when she was explaining it to us in a way that we would have to think about it. She wasn't giving us answers. She was walking us through how to find the answers. Without her, we would not have made it. And the transition to Lake Erie, we got through it, but that was difficult because we had such a good mentor in Cheryl. She was incredible. So cheers to Cheryl.
We always want to hear that, right? We know that we set up our first learners with our first faculty or our first mentors in the program. That's what we want. We want you to never want to leave the one that you're with, because it's such an amazing experience. So we're so happy to hear that is always our goal, is to set up our cohorts with an experience as they begin the new learning. You know, I know Carrie mentioned that, you know, oftentimes we hear like, gosh, it's like, Cynthia, like, it's been a while since I've been in school, or, you know, I've got kiddos to make dinner with every night. Like, how am I going to balance this? And so that's been really important for us, is to set up the opportunity, especially in those first semesters, to be comfortable with going back to class and to know what that learning looks like. You know, you even mentioned earlier, Elizabeth, most of us didn't learn in a competency-based manner when we were in school a while ago, right? So understanding how you sort of learn in this way that really is on the job and hands-on, and doing the work from the very beginning, not just writing about it, is a little different. And sometimes it takes a little bit of a transition to learn into that and to grow into that. But it's so that you had that experience and were able to continue that on. And so excellent. Well, if we have any other questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. We've got a few more minutes before we'll be ending our time together. So if you have a question, feel free to drop it in the chat if you're one of our attendees, or if you want to raise your hand, we can let you off of mute. and open up for questions. And while we're looking for any of those, if they come in, Elizabeth and Cynthia, I would just love to ask you one final question. You know, Dr. Osher mentioned that, you know, there's a lot of folks that will grab her and say, well, what about me? Do you have a spot in the program now? There's a lot of people that may want to move into this type of a program. So if a friend came to you and said, what do you think? You know, I'm going to start this program. What would you share with them is maybe something that you wish you had known at the beginning, or something to share with them as you're exiting if they were interested in beginning a program as a paraprofessional?
I
Yes.
would tell you that BloomBoard is the way to go, especially if you're not able to do the traditional way of schooling. BloomBoard is the way. And I also get people stopping me. Okay, when is the next session? I have a lady in the cafeteria. Okay, can you give me the information, Cynthia? She said, oh, you don't remember until you see my face. I said, that's the truth. I don't remember until I see your face to give you the information, you know? But yeah, BloomBoard is the way to go if you're not looking for a traditional way of earning your degree in education.
Yeah. Cynthia, I love that you mentioned your friend who works in the cafeteria. We do have education support professionals in lots of different roles. Many of them are already in the classroom as para educators, but we also have crossing guards and office managers and other folks who have those amazing relationships in their schools or their communities that are also now, with the support of their district, being able to move in and support in classrooms and start through this program. So that's exciting to hear. Excellent. Elizabeth, what advice would you give someone, or recommendation would you say?
I would just tell them to hit the ground running. Start your reading right away. And if you have questions, send an email to somebody who is in the program with you, whether it be Cynthia as your teacher or your professor. And don't be afraid to get things returned to you. Like, one of the ways I think we've learned best is when I've handed something in that's not correct and it comes back to me, really looking, and you're able to figure out what you need to do. And so it's not like traditional in the way that you do a paper and then you're like, oh crap, I got a C. It's, if you didn't complete it in the way it needs to be, you have the opportunity to have a deeper understanding. And that's what I found to happen, was that I was not even understanding the question. And then when I would get it back to me with a little more direction, I would really understand the concept. And I think that's really helpful. Again, the fact that there's no A's and D's and C's, also, I think it makes it less intimidating not to know, if you don't get an A in traditional school, you feel bad even if you did okay. They C's get degrees for a reason, because you just need to show that you get it. You don't have to be the best at it. You just need to understand it. And for me, I think that was a huge game changer, is when I realized that the end goal isn't an A, the end goal is understanding. So
absolutely, that demonstration of that competency, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to piggyback after that. Sometimes we do like, oh, something to get returned. But I learned that it's not a bad thing. It's pulling the best up out of you to be able to answer that whatever that question may be the exact way. I love not getting the A's, B's, because I feel like this way it allows me to really put that brain in gear and get it going.
Yeah. I love, we're at time, but I'm going to pull that as our last final statement. Like, how do we pull the best up out of us to be the best for our students and to be the best that we can for our schools? Thank you so much. What a gift to be able to sit and chat with each of you. Cynthia and Elizabeth, thank you so much for taking some time. I know you're in your classrooms, you've got kiddos coming back in. We want to let you go back to that, but thank you so much for your gift of your time today and sharing your experience. Dr. Osher, thank you so much for not only joining and bringing along your amazing educators, but to share your experience. If you're on the call, I know that Dr. Osher and Elizabeth and Cynthia are happy to answer any additional questions that come up later. Feel free to drop those, any follow-ups about the webinar, or to reach out for us. I know that Dr. Osher, you've been gracious and offered to support anyone as they're considering developing a program, or to talking about how you maybe did any of the setup or funding or organization of your program. So thank you all so much. And everyone, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.